So, good day, everyone. Mm, For today, we're going to tackle about the history of travel and tourism in different eras and the history of travel and tourism in the Philippines. Okay, so I just want to read it nationally. Through the history of travel and tourism, we can learn about the construction, operation, and evolution of past communities. Institution, ideologies, governments and cultures, and technology. The words past assist us in painting a detailed picture of where we are now, and benefits us to develop an understanding of the world. Developing your knowledge of history means developing your knowledge of all these different aspects of life and become more rounded person. History is full of stories. Some are inspiring and uplifting. Others are chaotic and immoral. So it's also good to understand your identity. Nations are made up of a collection of stories and legends. These stories shape the way we think about our country and our understanding within it. History is where we learn about how great institutions are formed and how they contributed to where we are today. So it's good of finding the history of tourism and management, tourism and travel and tourism. So for that, it's very important to know the starting point of the tourism so that can um, we can go deeper to understand the concept of travel and tourism. Let's go to Romans and Greeks era. In the past, traders such as the Romans and Greeks were well known. As their empire increased, they needed to travel frequently because it is necessary for them to travel because from that time they are traders. So it's very important that uh, they are they travel frequently. So the improvement in first class routes, inns, and travelers has has also impact on our history of tourism. And this is the Appian Way. It's one of the best route in Rome. So until now, uh, it is can be seen in Rome. So horse relays were also used by the Romans because um, the travel uh, travel is 100 miles away from their destination. So they need to have a relay of horses uh, and every 6 miles a stable could be found where travelers could change horses because of these distances of more than 100 miles could be reached in one day. So that's very tiring. Leisure travel existed at the time, but it was not widely used. Yes, because um, from that time only the affluent families can travel, like travel to witness the Olympic Games, that leisure time is for from the time is for only for affluent families. That's why it is not widely used or not that's too much excessive at the time. So pilgrimages to sites of worship were the most common religious journeys because from the time Romans and Greeks, we all know that they are religious and they go to pilgrimages um, and taking to fulfill a vow as in case of illness or a great danger or as retribution for sins. So they go to church for washing their sins and um, um, uh, worshiping God to, to heal their illness or um, uh, take, hindi sila ano sa kapahamakan. Okay? So, aside from Rome and Jerusalem, Galatia and Spain became the foremost destination for English pilgrims in the 14th century. So, there, and the Passover and Jerusalem were at the famous sites of pilgrims. So, this is the Cathedral, Santiago de Compostela Cathedral. And in the 4th century, Galatian Spain became foremost destination for English pilgrims. In 1388, English pilgrims were required to obtain and carry permits. Yes, and that's uh, that's the precursor of the modern passport now. So let's go to medieval period. In the 5th century is the fall of Roman Empire. So the fall of Roman Empire has brought a decline in travel because it is difficult and dangerous and demanding to travel. So the tourism of that time is declining. During this time, no one traveled for pleasure because of yes for dangerous with travel. It is very dangerous because um, there is thieves of inflicted harm on those who attempted to travel and became unsafe for travelers. So and that's all for medieval period. Let's go to Renaissance period. So or Elizabeth era. Few prestigious universities arose at this time and British pioneered educational travel. So from this time, there is universities, the prestigious universities are arising, and during Queen Elizabeth reign, Elizabeth I reign, young aristocrat men aspiring to position in the court were encouraged to travel across Europe to broaden their knowledge. So um, they required the this aristocrat men to travel across Europe to broaden their knowledge. A gentleman's education should culminate in a grand tour. So a grand tour is a travel was institutionalized for the upper class in the later part of the 18th century, and the tour includes visiting different cultural centers on the continent uh, for 2 years. Though, though, though express an educational activity, the Grand Tour became more of social business. But People also travel for health and wellness. So, aside from educational travel, people also travel for health and wellness. So, one of this is this a spa or tap baths. Yeah, and so spa, which means fountain. So, entertainment was, and many of the watering places become a resort hotel. So, many of the watering places become resort hotels like that. Yes. So, industrial revolution. In industrial revolution, the type and scale of tourism growth changed dramatically. So, there's just drastically growing some in industrial revolution because of the technology, because of the invest, advancement of uh, technology. It ushered in social changes that made travel more enticing. Workers had greater time and inclination to take vacation as productivity, employment regularization, and urbanization increased. So because of industrial revolution, the works of the worker is being easy. So from that time they have leisure time because of that enhancement of technology. So as about a result, working class resorts were built around major industrial centers. So from from that, because of industrial revolution, um, there is so much resorts were built in around in the industrial centers. So we can go easily um, on that resort. So from that time also, people want to go to seashore for leisure, for relaxation. And in 19th century, travel has become more convenient as a result of technological advancement. So also, it, uh, the travel has become convenient because of technology advancement. The railway system and steam power were introduced in the early 19th century. So from this time, there is a railway system and steam power. Photography as well as instructional materials such as guidebooks and travelogues became is increasingly popular. So this is the Baker's travelogues or books that's became increasingly popular. The first recognized travel agency was Cox and Kings. However, these solely catered to the travel needs of the British Royal Armed Forces. So this is Cox and Kings. So they just catered the needs of the British Royal Armed Forces. So uh, their travel agency is limited only to the British Royal. Thomas Cook opened the first leisure travel agency. Yes, he is the one who opened the first leisure travel agency. Um, Thomas Cook and Sons, Thomas Cox and Son, to help Britons improve their lives by seeing the world. So he helped the Britons improve their lives by seeing the world. And a first excursion trip occurred in 1841 between Leicester and Loughborough, with 571 passengers provided with meals and entertained with brass music. And from 1855, Cook offered a guided vacation abroad. So he catered mixed clientele from rulers of state and royalty to average representatives of the middle, lower middle, and working classes. In 1868, he introduced the circular notes, so which were accepted in the banks, hotels, restaurants, and shops. This was, in effect, the first traveler's checks. So, because of his work, um, he's been considered his contribution. He was named the father of the modern tourism. So he is the father of the modern tourism. Now, in 20th century, tourism grew stagnant during World War One because of the war, and it's not safe to travel, and also the roads are destroyed, all the infrastructure are destroyed because of the war. People's curiosity has grown as a result of new sources of mass communication such as cinema, radio, and television, which have widened their knowledge and interest in travel. So, from that also in 20th century, um, people is curious, and then it's a result for a new sources of mass communication. So, and from that, it widened their knowledge and interest in travel. The arrival of the automobile resulted in a decline in railway travel. Yes, because from that time, there the arousing of privatizations of automobiles. So there's no many people to uh, to use the railway to for their travel because they have their own automobile. The progress in aviation technology during World War II inspired an increase in travel interest because of um, aviation technology. The aircraft, example of this, the aircraft. So the aircraft is um, built in that in World War II. So the private, yes, the privatization of automobiles liberated people from the constraints of public transit schedules and routes. So from this time, so there is privatization of automobiles and the constraint of public transit schedules and routes. Right after the war, the economies recovered and resulting in an increase in discretionary income and leisure time. So from that, because of right after the war, the economies recovered. So then a new interest uh, to to have a leisure time. So um, that's um, that's a good a positive impact of tourism. Um, it gives you income. Um, it develops countries' business and trade. So from that time, in developed countries, business and trade blossom. So it uh, it's expanding or um, it's arousing. So so it's good that business and trade have blossomed in 20th century. In 21st century, global incurrencies were on the decline at the turn of the century because of crisis. Like this, on example of that is the crisis of in September 11. Um, yeah, we know that there is crisis in that day, and World Trade Center also. There's a bombing in the World Trade Center, New York City bombing, the war in Iraq, terrorist attacks, and health scares hit a decline in international travel. So, because of that crisis, the the travel tourism has declined because it is also unsafe to travel. So the surge in internet usage altered travel services, and the century also brought a huge technological transformation. In 2000, online travel bookings roughly doubled. So from that advancement of technology, so there's travel services like um, and from that the online travel bookings are roughly doubled in 2000. So Expedia, the world's largest travel company, expanded its portfolio in 2014 to include brands like as Hotels.com, Trivago, Hotwire Group, and Expedia Cruise Ship Center. So that's one of the um, online advancement on that in 21st century. So there is uh, we just a website to see uh, what hotels can see the hotels or what's good for you for your family. You can watch the reviews. You can see the reviews of this hotel. So it's good that we if we travel we have this reviews to uh, we're going to stay. Um, let's go to the history of travel and tourism in the Philippines. So in Spanish occupation, travel was limiting to education, employment, and religious pilgrimage during the Spanish occupation. Traveling to foreign country is expensive and time consuming. Yes, because from that time of Spanish occupation in the Philippines, there is no uh, there is no such so much advancement in technology. So they just uses a galleon. So it's like a very big boat that you can travel to different countries. The Spaniard introduced inventions such as railroads, electricity, and telegraphy in the late 19th century. So the Spanish introduced it to the Philippines, the railroads, electricity, and telegraphy. So they are the one who who give us the electricity, who give us uh, introduced that invention. So in late 19th century, non-Spanish entrepreneurs, diplomats, and mariners began to visit Manila after it was open to foreign trade. So and the city's first luxurious Hotel de Oriente, opened in 1889. So this is the Hotel de Oriente, and it was opened in 1889. So this is the first hotel in the Philippines. American occupation. A Manila Hotel was opened by Americans, which became the city's landmark. So they are the one who built the Manila Hotel and become our landmark. Became the city's landmark. So Americans also do mineral excavation, and it was conducted in mountainous region which is in Baguio City. So which is in Baguio. So Americans store in Baguio a small rural village into a city. Um, there were still few international visitors in the first half of the 20th century, but their travel was limited to the country's capital city. So, because of um, uh, maybe the roads also is not established, um, and it's not comfortable for the foreigners to travel all over the Philippines. Traveling by ocean liner from America to Manila used to take 2 weeks, but the time was cut in half when Pan American Airlines introduced Pan American Clippers. So, um, traveling by ocean liner takes 2 weeks, but thanks to America, that the Pan American Clippers has been in the Philippines, so the the 2 weeks has been half of that, so it became 1 week or um, at just few days. So first private airport in the country was established in 1937, and that is the Philippine Airlines. So the Philippine Airlines also is the first airline in the country. So in 1952, the country's first tourism organization was formed. It is the Philippine Tourist and Travel Association. So the PTTA was founded by the government to promote the country's tourist industry because uh, the PTTA has give gave hope to the Philippine tourist and to our country's tourist industry. And then in 1956, the Board of Travel and Tourist Industry was established by the government through RA 1478 in 1956. So BTTI, Board of Travel and Tourists. So it was a policy-making organization in charge of regulating, supervising, and controlling the tourist industry. So from that law, um, organization is taking in charge of regulating and supervising. So and also controlling the tourist. Hmm. In 1973, the BTTI was renamed the Ministry of Tourism in 1973. So from Board of Travel and Tourism, it renamed Ministry of Tourism in 1973, and it's currently known as the Department of Tourism. So that is the present uh, mm, department of the the tourist industry. Tourism become more well known, and Filipinos consider it is as a respectable profession. So from that time, the the Filipinos um, reflect that it is a good profession. It is a great opportunity to a skilled worker, like Philippines skilled worker. So the these consider they respect it as it is a they know it as respectable profession. In 1977, the University of the Philippines provided the country's first tourism degree program in 1977. So, University of the Philippines is the first university who create a program of tourism degree. So, in 1974, Department of Transportation sponsored worldwide conferences and
Sporting
sport
events such as the Miss
sporting
Universe
events,
pageant.
the World Bank International Monetary Fund Summit, and the Ali Pfizer Trillia in Manila Boxing bout. So from the time there was so much tourists who travel the Philippines uh, because of they open the Philippines to worldwide conferences. In 1989, the Department of Tourism launched its first promotional campaign with the slogan "Fiesta Island, Philippines." So see, this is the first slogan we have, the Fiesta Islands 89. See the picture. That was the logo, that campaign. In 1990s, when budget airlines entered the market in the 1990s, and more provincial airports were allowed to international flights, local civil aviation enhanced tourism in the country. So because of we have we budget airlines entered the market, so we also want uh, to enhance or enhance our tourism in the country. So uh, and and the provincial airports were allowed. So we allow the provincial airports to international flights. And then this boosted tourism in the regions, and Boracay Islands became a well-known international vacation because of provincial airports is allowed to for international flights. So from that, it boosted the tourism in the regions and particularly in Boracay Islands. So it will it has become a well-known international vacation spot. So in 2000, in the year 2000, a public holiday was moved to the nearest weekend, resulting in a 3-day holiday break or long weekend for Filipinos, for giving them extra opportunity to travel around the nation. So in 2000, so the government give a long weekend for the Filipinos for the who is working. Um, so give it them a holiday break for giving them extra opportunity to travel around their country. In 2010, um, the country's tourism was affected by three critical problems. So, and 2010 has many very critical in the tourism and travel and tourism industry. Yes. And the first, but the first critical problem is the backlash against the Philippines Kaganda marketing campaign because of also the Filipinos don't didn't didn't appreciate it that it would be a good marketing campaign. And it's also mm, uh, conflicted as plagiarism because of the logo. This sign is very similar to Poland, and yeah, it it's been not good. So many criticize this Filipino language slogan and might not be recognized in international market. So that's the criticism of the Filipinos, and many and um, the campaign was pulled out weeks after it was launched, and the tourism secretary was replaced because of the incident of plagiarism. Second, because all Philippine carriers failed to fulfill international safety requirements, they were restricted from flying across European airspace. So, in 2010, because of failed to fulfill international safety, so they restricted us uh, to fly across European airspace. And from the time, also, Dutch carrier KLM was the only airline that operated between the Philippines and Europe. So there was just one airline who operated uh, between Philippines and Europe. The ban limited the number of European visitors until it was lifted in 2015. So unlessly there was the hostage-taking event at the carrier grandstand, in which a police officer held a busload of Hong Kong tourists hostage. So, from the incident, it was a very shaky and uh, very critical for tourist industry. So, because uh, uh, it was not handled. It was mishandled the rescue operation, and also it was broadcasted live around the world. So, and the reputation of the Philippines suffered. In 2011 to 21st, in 2011, the Department of Tourism recorded 3.9 tourists visiting the country, and 11.2% higher than the 3.5 million registered in 2010. In 2012, also the UT launched the "It's More Fun in the Philippines" campaign, and it became famous. It became viral in the Philippines because there's so much memes about that about that campaign. In 2015, to keep the momentum going, the Department of Tourism launched a Visit the Philippines Year campaign. So, campaign endorsed by the WTO as a 24 months promo. And in 2002, it served as an umbrella program for WOW Philippines, and it was again used in 2015, which was declared as the Visit Philippines Year, and in 2016, which was Visit the Philippines Again year. Mm. Then Visit Philippines Again in 2016 is a promotion that encouraged people to return to the Philippines in our country again. So tourist arrivals increased by 11.31% during that year. In 2017, former Secretary Wanda Corazontillo launched a 60-second promotional video with a new slogan, "Experience the Philippines." So, the video was inspired by the story of Japanese literary who resided in the country. It ended with the voice cover, "You don't have to see to feel you." Uh, you don't have to see to feel your home, and a big revelation that the partner is blind. So, on that video, um, it uh, it uh, it views we see how the Filipinos is very accommodating, very hospitable to the tourists, to the foreigner, to the other country. So in 2019, the Department of Tourism will launch 8 More Fun in the Philippines, but um, the new logo features there is a new logo features a new font and a wave with colors depicting Filipino products. While the previous logo had the Philippine map. Yes, uh, yeah, the previous logo is only a Philippine map, but in 2019 the new logo features we make it more attractive. And then in 2020, tourism in the Philippines faced a big crisis because of COVID-19. So we all know that in that time we are all locked in our home and there's no travel and there's no leisure for outside leisure. So that time it's very not good for tourism industry. So it was a unlucky year for the our tourism industry. And in 2021 and this year, they started to open some of the tourist spots, and only the fully vaccinated individuals is granted. So we see in the news that the DOT started to open some of the tourist spots, but only it's only granted for fully vaccinated individual. That's all. Thank you for listening.